anyway, I want to call the meeting to order and to welcome our guests. We have some guests today. Would you stand up, please, and give us your name?
I'm Rita Ladner, and I'm with James today.
Well, we're so glad you came. We hope you'll enjoy it. Dr. Hampton, would you lead us in prayer?
Lord in heaven, we thank you for the privilege we have. In common, we have the warmth that we share, and the historical situation speaks for itself. We appreciate everything that we have in and about us at our age and time in life, provided for us. We're thankful. And at this point in time, we thank you for what we have, what you've done, and what you're going to do for us. We thank thee in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit for all of us in common. The Lord is our God, and we shall keep our faith with thee. Amen.
I want to thank our hostesses, Wayne Grant, Cheryl, and anyway, those are the ones that have helped us this afternoon with the delicious refreshments, and we thank you for it. Yeah, that's the next thing. Okay, everybody ready? Salute the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll have the treasurer's report, Ginger. I'm sorry, I meant minutes.
Okay, you wanna give me the treasurer's report so I can write it down?
I will. I'll go ahead and give you that. Let me do that first.
Okay.
I do wanna tell y'all about Myra. She's our treasurer, for those of you who don't remember or don't know. Anyway, remember she had cancer in her mouth, on her tongue. They did surgery on it. Supposedly it's gotten most of the cancer, or all of the cancer. But while she was taking chemo, she was getting dressed, slipped down, fell, broke her hip.
Oh.
So she went back in for hip surgery. She was in the hospital there for quite some time, and now she is in rehab. And hopefully she'll be home. I think she told me March the 28th. We hope so. Y'all keep her in your prayers, because she's had a rough go up. She's on a feeding tube, not able to eat, and this has been quite a long, drawn out situation, so I know she's really in bad shape. Our treasurer's report, we actually now have $5,605.96. You got it?
Yep.
Okay, Ginger, go ahead and read our minutes,
Okay.
please.
February the 15th, 2024. The meeting was called to order by President John Bassett. John Grant gave the invocation and members recited the Pledge of Allegiance. The treasury report was $5,856.96. John Phillips was welcomed as a guest. He was seeking information on the Hammock family. Mr. Phillips had discovered under his house a tombstone monument bearing that name, and he wanted to contact the family. He was referred to Reverend Larry Head, whose wife is Rhonda Hammock. Lou Ann Lee was welcomed as a new member. Members were encouraged to sign up for museum duties. Facebook posts and reopening the museum were also discussed. Ms. Bassett thanked Cheryl Rommel, Martha Fry, Elizabeth Williams, James Carlisle, and David Smith for helping with displays. The current display showcases tools and items of the past. These items were labeled since they are not normally used today. Historical markers have been postponed due to finding someone to make them. After the meeting, members toured the exhibits.
Thank you, Ginger. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, they'll stand approved as read. Just quickly, a little bit of our old business. I talked with the CPA about, we have to turn in about our taxes and everything every year since Myra can't do it, and I'll be meeting with him in April. So, hopefully we'll get that taken care of. To let y'all know, we did send Myra a get well card, and we also sent her a bouquet of flowers from the Historical Society. A little bit to tell you about the status of the opening of the museum. We are now doing private tours. I've already done one of the Kim Torrance Family School. There were about 17 children, I think, there, and we did a private tour for them through the museum. And the ages ranged from about a 7-year-old up through a teenager. They had a lot of fun and learned a lot, I hope. Anyway, one quick thing I'll tell you that I thought was really cute. We took them through to the room where all the school desks and all are from years past. And in the old school desk where they had the inkwells, and they had the hole in the desk. And I was asking, I said, does anybody know what this hole is for? And they were all talking among themselves, and they were guessing. And one guy raised his hand and he said, was it to throw trash in? I said, no, but that was a good guess. And I explained to them, of course, about the ink and the ink pens, and that's what they used to have instead of pencils. And they also asked me about the typewriter from the 50s, the manual typewriter. And I said to one of them, I said, well, you see the thing you're holding in your hand now? He had his cell phone. And I said, that is now a typewriter today. And he said, oh, he said, does that thing really work? I said, yes, it does. Anyway, it was a lot of fun, and I think they enjoyed it too. But we hope to open the museum again shortly. We've had a time because we're open the hours of the chamber. And the chamber has been closed for quite some time. They were waiting on their attorney to get the paperwork done, something about them being eligible enough to even hire a secretary. So I'm told that hopefully in the next few weeks, they'll get that done. But I thought, well, we might go ahead and open anyway, several days a week, and to get people started coming back to the museum. If we don't, people are just gonna forget about us completely. And I wanted to get our, Martha's getting our rack cards back out for us for people to see, and we will hopefully get some of you to help us reopen, maybe even if it's 2 or 3 days during the week. And we'll work that out a little bit later. But I do need volunteers. Again, I know some of you were so good to help this past few years volunteering at the museum. And the only thing I think I wanted to tell you was about Myra. Also, the mayor, who's one of our members, she's had surgery done on both her knees. And we've sent a card for that and some flowers to her as well. Anyone have any questions about any of that?
Who is the CPA?
He's Mr. Whitfield in Picayune. Kent Whitfield.
Is he also the one for the chamber?
Beg your pardon?
Is he also the one for the chamber?
I don't know, they're separate from us, so
Okay.
they do their own thing, and they have their own. That's why the reason we have to wait for the chamber is that we're not allowed to give keys out to the museum, to even our volunteers. And we were opening when they're open, so you come in through the chamber door, you go in and work your time in the museum. When it's time to leave, you go back out, or you can go out the doors. Oh, that's one thing I did want to tell you. We're going to get new locks on the museum doors because several times the back door has been wide open. We don't know why. We don't know if maybe people in the chamber, when they left, went through the museum going out, and they didn't slam the door hard enough maybe. Or we don't know if somebody actually broke in the museum. So far, the only thing I've found that's not there was, one of the older flat screen TVs. And I haven't found it anywhere. I know where I put it, but it's not there. So I don't know if that was taken or not. Anyway, we're gonna get new deadbolt locks on both doors. Hopefully in the next week. Are there any questions about anything?
Yeah, why do they have to have a lawyer to hire a secretary for the chamber, did they say?
I have no idea, Martha, that's their, this chamber's separate from us, so I don't know. You'd have to ask the chamber director. I have no idea.
How do you reach the chamber director?
Good
Who
question.
is the chamber director?
It's Shirley Wiltshire's son, Bo Wiltshire.
Bo Wiltshire, oh.
And I don't know, it has something to do about, see, we already have done all of that, and the fact that we have our, what is it? Is it a 301 or 501c?
501(c)(3).
We have.
501(c)(3).
Yeah, we've had ours for years. They thought they had it,
Oh,
but obviously from going back and changing and doing all that, they found out they never got that.
oh my goodness.
So they're not allowed to do anything really financially
Oh my word,
without that.
goodness.
We can, you know, and we try to keep that where we can
Right,
at all times.
absolutely,
But you'd have to ask them, cause as I say, they're completely separate from us.
I see.
And they have a new director, a new board of,
Is that new director, this fella here?
Mhm.
No, is the new
Bo
director?
Wiltshire. And they have a new board of directors. All of the old ones, myself included, cause I used to be on the board years, you know, but all the older ones are not included. So, they're starting out and unfortunately don't know a lot of the details, I guess, I don't really know. But anyway, we may have to do our own thing
Right.
shortly. The main thing is we wanna get open and running again. And, but those of you who didn't make it to the last meeting, we had our exhibit days gone by of what used to be and what is now. And if you haven't seen it, I think you'd enjoy seeing it. Just to give you a couple of suggestions of what we have in there. We've got like an old oil lamp, which is what people used to use, and I put a new curly light bulb, an LED, and put then and now. We have things, the old scrub board, which people used to have, and clothespins have even changed over the years. A lot of things, the children's games have changed and all. So I think if you didn't get to see it last month, when we had the tour, that you might want to. Hopefully we're changing out the movie star exhibit to have an exhibit on the courthouse. And we're hoping Mike can give us a lot of good information today. And we want to leave that as a permanent exhibit. The courthouse, and we're working on Poplarville, then and now is what used to be, and we'll leave that as a permanent exhibit. Okay, any further questions? If not, let's get Mike up here. Mike, with him, I was asking him a little bit about, he was born in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. And, his parents moved here. His parents, I found out, his dad was the band director over at PRC. And, I still call it PRC instead of Pearl River Community College, because it was PRC when I was growing up. Anyway, and Mike retired he was an attorney, at Williams & Williams, and for 40+ years. And now, he's with the Pearl River County Prosecuting. He is the Pearl River County Prosecuting Attorney.
That's correct.
Okay, and Mike, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, all right, thanks.
This is Mike Patten.
I believe I know all of you, or most of you tonight will meet what we're doing here. I am not a historian. I am interested in, notes. In history, when it involves subjects I'm interested in. So, I made a similar presentation to this group, I know some of you were here in 2019 about the courthouse. And I must confess, I had an agenda when I made that presentation. We were in the process of trying to convince the Board of Supervisors to build the annex next to the other existing courthouse. So the Board of Supervisors, though our meeting here didn't convince them, I think a lot of other people convinced them of the need of it. And it has been very important to the court system in Pearl River County, as well as South Mississippi, because our circuit and our chancery courts involve other counties too. So the problem was it was being built during the epidemic and pandemic, whatever you want to call it. And so it was a little bit delayed opening, but it's a wonderful facility. It's used very frequently, and because of that, it enables the other courthouse, the one I'm going to talk about, the one built in 1918, to be used more frequently without the overlapping of different courts. And as a result, they've been able to update and modernize some of the offices, because they've moved some of the offices into the new annex. And so it really looks good over there. The courtroom looks good. They've installed a lot of technology that's necessary to do trials today in the courtroom. So the annex has actually helped preserve the 1918 courthouse. So the first thing I told you last time is going to be the first thing I'm going to tell you this time. If you go to the front of the courthouse and you look up, you're going to see Pearl River County. But when you look up there above it, way at the top, you have to kind of squint your eyes. This wording is at the top of the courthouse. It says, erected in the year of our Lord, 1918, in Roman numerals, to all who love truth, justice, and thrift. So the concentration of my previous presentation was thrift. And thrift does not mean cheapness, but I've already explained my position on that. So we're going to talk about truth and justice today. She said, I am the Pearl River County prosecuting attorney, which means I prosecute all misdemeanors that happen in the county outside of the two municipalities. I prosecute all felonies that happen in the counties, whether they're in the city of Picayune, city of Poplarville, Pearl River Community College, or in the county in general. With the felonies, I'm involved in the investigative stages of the prosecution, and once we get the issue bound over to the grand jury, then the DA's office takes it. But that's going to play into what I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. So I'm going to say some things. I'm going to talk about some people that I never knew that y'all probably personally knew. Okay, so I'm hoping if you hear something and I say it's wrong, raise your hand and correct me. If not, tell me afterwards, but I won't be embarrassed. Our county was created February 22nd, 1890. Now, there was a previous Pearl County. That's not Pearl River County. I'm talking about Pearl River County today. Pearl County covered some of the same territory. The original Pearl River County was taken out of parts of Marion County, and later parts of Hancock County were added in. But and in 1890, Lumberton was a part of Pearl River County. So the original minutes of the supervisors, the Lumberton Head Block was the official newspaper for publication in Pearl River County. Later on, they pulled out. So the first supervisors were appointed by the governor. The governor appointed a court clerk who was both Chancery and Circuit Court clerk, and you know what I'm talking about. The first sheriff appointed was Mr. J.M. Shivers, who I've always heard referred to as Colonel Shivers. So he was the first appointed one, and looking at the minutes, he was later the first elected one. But well, let me stop here. I've got a bunch of pictures up here, and I'm going to show them to you. But this involves the truth part. I have made a lot of assumptions over my lifetime about what happened, when, and where, and the truth is I was wrong. But I didn't intentionally try to fabricate things. I just heard things from people. So I jumped to some conclusions. I have this photograph here of this gentleman sitting in a law library looking at law books in a very old room, and y'all can come up and look at it. I believe this to be Judge Shivers, who was Colonel Shivers' son, who was a circuit court judge and a practicing attorney here. I originally thought this picture was taken in the old courthouse, the first courthouse, but the timeline doesn't line up. Due to his age in the picture, I was in Marion County in court last week, and I looked up, and his picture is on the wall in the courthouse in Marion County, because he was the circuit court judge, so he was also the judge in Marion County. And I realized that this picture was either made in Lawrence County or Marion County, looking at it, and I've been in both those courthouses quite a bit, and it doesn't look like that, but I know they've refurbished some things there. So this picture I'm going to show you is the first courthouse in Pearl River County. And there's a building over here, and I'm going to explain to you what I think that is, and I'm pretty sure of what it is. And I'm going to explain to you about this building before we go to the 1918 building. But the location of those buildings are where, on the block where the old hospital is. They were not where the present courthouse is. That block on the official plat of the town of Poplarville, which was created in 1900. So those buildings, the layouts of those blocks, the layouts of the street in Poplarville predate the plat. So it gets very confusing when you do title search. But they describe the block, when the county acquired this property, they describe it by the adjoining streets, which have the same name today as they had then. And if you look at the original plat from 1900, it says Courthouse Square, and I wrote in old there. And then in front of it, back toward Main Street, I wrote present courthouse. So they were on the back block there. And the minutes for the original board, the first minutes happened in 1890, February of 1890 are the first minutes of the Board of Supervisors. In June, in that first meeting, they directed Sheriff Shivers to find a suitable house to appropriate to have circuit court in. So they had to go around, and I don't know whose house they used, but somebody's house had I probably could find it in the minutes, I just didn't have that kind of time. Then, the next thing they did, in April of 1891, they approved specifications for the new jail. So the jail was built before the courthouse was, which tells you the more things change, the more they stay the same. So this photograph is the courthouse that they're going to build, but this is the jail building I'm 85% sure. Neither building is there. A month or two later, they let the specifications for the courthouse. Now, some of these photographs come from a set of postcards, and I think these things are not, I don't have the only set, what I'm saying, these were mass produced, and mine are falling apart. But this set of postcards has some great photographs of the city of Poplarville on it. And it shows the original courthouse square in this photograph. The postcards talk about the Great Panic, okay? That's the Knickerbocker Panic of 1907 they're talking about. So I know these postcards were created after 1907. I don't know the date of the photographs, but I would think they weren't taken a long time before the things were created. And I know they predate 1909 because the postmark on the postcards I have is from 1909. So I know that that photograph was made before 1909 and possibly made after slightly before 1907.
Could I
But-
ask something?
Yes,
The Great Panic, what was it?
it was a financial panic. It was a run on the banks.
Okay,
It happened in New York City,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Knickerbocker.
Yeah,
Knickerbocker.
it's a,
And everyone went to withdraw their money and they had a rush on the banks. It had to do with an investment scheme by one of the big companies. The interesting thing is it says it did not affect our local banks. And we, at that time, there are two photographs of two large banks here at that time. One, well, they were right over there, you know, where the Hancock Bank parking lot is. And most of us remember that before they tore that building down, but next to it, adjacent to it was the other bank. So, and there may have been another one. That's the two I know about. So moving forward, I do not know why this building needed to be replaced, or they wanted to replace it, because in 1918, this building would have been probably 20-something years old. So, but they had a reason. It might have been inadequate. Maybe they outgrew it. I don't know. I wasn't here. So I'm just speculating at that point. So in 1918, the Board of Supervisors let out the specification for the building we're actually talking about today, this building as we know it. In this photograph, I have no idea the date of this one. This one, you can see the monument, which was put in 1926. So I know this one was made after 1926. This is a postcard, and it's kind of one of those, maybe a photograph they've colored in. I'm not sure what the terminology for that is, but it doesn't show the monument. So this is between 1918 and 1926. This is 1926. This photograph is really neat, and I can't see the angle of where the monument would be, but so I don't know if it's there or not, to be honest, but all these photographs show the fencing around the courthouse intact before it was taken down. I've always heard, and now we're getting out of the truth range, but maybe some of the fencing was taken down during World War II for the metal drives because of that. That's the story I've always heard. I can't confirm that, but it makes sense to me. Truthfully, as you know, those robin fences take a lot of maintenance and repair, and it may have been a good excuse to get rid of them. I don't know. I've heard stories of you know, young people used to skate around the courthouse. And she just told me they skated in the courthouse too. And I can remember when the doors would always be wide open in the courthouse, weekend, night, whatever. So the courthouse was a gathering place, a social place. And I found this photograph, and this shows a band, it's PRC band, and it has both children and college-age people in it. I can't identify anyone in here. If y'all would look and identify someone, maybe we can date it. I have a picture of the band from 1927, and this is after that, I can tell you that, because that band didn't have uniforms. These uniforms are 1930s, maybe 1940s. I have a 1928 Pearl River catalog that shows me that band was offered to younger community students also for a fee. So like elementary and junior high could go there. Of course, during that time, the juniors and seniors in high school also attended over there. So I know that, I wasn't there, but I know that. I've been told that, and I've got annuals to prove it. So that said, what is a courthouse? What is it used for? You know, so the supervisors were concerned with truth, justice, and thrift. I will tell you that truth is a moving target, and I never thought that until I became a prosecutor. You can take 3 eyewitnesses to something who will swear under oath that they saw different things. You can watch a football game, an NFL football game, and look at a particular play from 3 different perspectives and see 3 different things. The reality is sometimes truth is tempered by our location, our position to an event. It's also tempered by our memories. So, but when you're dealing with the liberty of a person, truth is all important. It's, and it has to, I would never be a judge, because the judge's task is often to determine what the truth is, unless a jury is involved, and then it's the jury's task. And I can assure you that in a trial, the jury never gets the perspective without being filtered by both sides of the prosecution and the defense. So that's just the way the rules of court are. As far as justice, a lot of people think a prosecutor is to put bad people in jail, to punish people for misdeeds. A lot of people think I represent the sheriff's department, the law enforcement officers, and some people think I represent the victims. The truth is, as a prosecutor, you represent justice. Justice is the most important thing for a prosecutor. And sometimes we don't like what justice requires us to do. Sometimes we know somebody did something, but we don't have the ability to prove it to the extent required by law. And I'm required to not prosecute that case when I become aware of that. So it's a hard issue. And so I'm about to put a dark cloud over my talk today, but I think it's very important. If we're going to acknowledge the truth and we're going to look at history, let's be honest, you know. If you go to Wikipedia and look up Poplarville, Mississippi, you're gonna read about this. We're forever hung with this, so to speak, and that's poor choice of words. But on April 25th, 1959, Mac Charles Parker was in jail He was charged with kidnapping and rape. I'll just say a group of people broke into the jail, removed him, took him outside the city limits somewhere, shot him, and disposed of his body. Those people were never prosecuted. There were appearances before the grand jury, and no indictment was ever issued, either in the state grand jury or the federal grand jury. But I have always heard lots of different opinions about this growing up. And I've heard people say, well, he did it, he deserved it. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know the truth. But I will say this. We live in the United States. In the United States, a person is not guilty until proven guilty. Now, I didn't say innocent, but some people say innocent. But I think of terms of guilty and not guilty. I don't know. All I can tell you is he was a young man. He was had been a veteran of the Army, and he was accused of this and arrested. He was taken out and murdered before he had a chance to go to trial. Now, what that does is that deprived justice to him. If he were an innocent person, he didn't have the opportunity to have a fair trial to get justice. If he were a guilty person, the victim didn't have the opportunity to get justice in this matter.
What was his name?
Mac Charles Parker.
Mac Charles Parker.
And if he were, there was a book that came out in 1986 that talks about it, and I think it has some of the facts wrong, but it has a lot of theories in there why it happened. I think maybe the theories are overcomplicated, but if you're interested in reading it, it's a good starting place. But the main thing is our community, our citizens were deprived of justice, because that's what justice is. It is the ability to incarcerate people who have done misdeeds, to issue out punishment, to have the assurance that if you are accused of something, you have a fair trial. So, you know, it's unfortunate, but I'm not gonna stand up here and not talk about it, because every day I walk through that courthouse, I think about it. I look at those steps, and I'm totally aware of what happened. And I was an infant at that time, so, but here we are all these years later talking about it. I believe, and I don't want to offend anyone, but I think it's time for us to, while our generation's still alive, to acknowledge that it happened, to maybe submit that the National Civil Rights Trail consider that this may be a landmark. The courthouse, by the way, was made a historical landmark in, I believe, 1989, I believe. So by the State Historical Commission. So any changes on the outside have to be approved. But that's just my thoughts, my feelings. If you disagree, I hope I hadn't hurt your feelings. You're not going to hurt mine. But you know, I look around, and it's had ramifications all of our lives, and it's had it's affected relationships in this community to this day. And, I just think it's time to do something about it. I don't know what, but I'm willing if y'all want.
Well, I've been to that museum, and that reconciliation project has been something that's been on my heart for a long time, because a lot of the communities here in Mississippi that have had lynchings, and that's what it was a lynching. A lot of the communities in Mississippi, have gone through that reconciliation process. It's very healing to a community. There's a lot of us here that were young, I was 10 years old when it happened. I'm almost on the verge of tears, because it was very traumatic for me. It still affects me to this day, traumatically. And I would love to see that our community, our Christian community, began to pray about this, so that we could bring about some reconciliation, while there's still some of us left that actually endured the horror of what happened to our community. And Mike's right, it severed many relationships in this community. Our community was changed forever. It was never the same community after that. So if y'all can go, whoever's computer literate, y'all go online and look up that reconciliation project. It's part of anyway, it's in Montgomery. I've been to the museum, it's fabulous. But it's an absolutely wonderful thing for a community, and we need to really pray about it and think about it, because it would bring healing to our community.
Thank you. And, you know, anyway, maybe it's a start. And I hope I haven't come and spoken out of order, because I know this is not the purpose of this group. But, so I'm gonna bring things back a little bit more light, because I don't want to end on a heavy note. There is beautiful tile floor.
And it makes a lot of noise when you have skates on. Have skated in there.
Each one of these tiny tiles was put in one at a time, and intricate roping and patterns. But the thing I've noticed from my wanderings up and down, there's a couple of instances where there's a tile out of place.
Yeah.
And if you walk through there, you'll find them. And even if you've seen them, it took me 10 minutes to find one yesterday, and I had to get Jody there to help me find it, because it's almost like a puzzle to find them. I cannot believe this was a mistake. This could not have been a mistake, because craftsmen built that. It's a puzzle. Somebody thought it was funny, or somebody was trying to tell us something. I don't know. but take a walk through the halls of the courthouse and try to find that. I think I've seen 2 of these. There may be 3, where the dots are out of order. Maybe the skaters knocked it loose in somewhere. It could have been, and these were craftsmen that laid that tile for sure. And I don't know, do y'all have any questions? I really just wandered all over the place with this stuff today.
Yeah. Mike, who put up the monument out there?
The Daughters of the Confederacy, and we've talked a lot about the Shivers today. We're going back to Colonel Shivers, the sheriff. The Daughters of the Confederacy, I took a picture of it so I wouldn't mess this up. Let me see, just a second. Took this picture yesterday. It says, erected under the auspices of the J.M. Shivers chapter of the Daughters of Confederacy, 1926. Now, I did some research on the monument, but I didn't write everything down. There were companies, and this particular monument, can't remember the name of the company. It might have been the Capitol Monument Company. I'll look it up. But courthouses all over the South were doing this. And so this monument was put up in the 20s, and they basically had stock choices you could make, you know. I'm sure there's a catalog somewhere, but you could have one with one human person on it, or you could have them with 3 or maybe more. You could, they had different styles of the thing, and then you order your engraving on top of that. So this one is dedicated to the men and women, I'm gonna get it wrong, but it's dedicated to the soldiers and the women who supported the home, I guess, when it was done, of the Confederacy and of World War I. Because World War I was ending just as the courthouse was built, so it was still fresh on their mind. And I have seen, there's a what I call a doughboy up there, a World War I soldier, and there's a Confederate soldier, and whether it's aging them, but I've seen both of those on other monuments of similar things, almost exactly. I don't know, they're like cookie cutters, but you know, in a different arrangement. And I haven't seen one of the woman on there, but I'm sure some of them do. And there's a list of Pearl River County residents that died in the Civil War, and there's a list of soldiers who died in World War I. Since then, smaller monuments were placed for the Korean War, I believe the Vietnam War, and the World War II. Nothing of that magnitude. And then some soldiers that were served in Desert Storm, there's a monument for them, and I think the later one is when they went back. I'm talking off my head, I didn't write all this down, so.
It's Iraq, I think that one's Iraq.
Iraq, I believe you're right. And originally, those have been relocated by the supervisors just to kind of dress up the situation, and they've done some landscaping, they've just resodded the concrete in front of the steps there was in very bad repair, the supervisors have just repaired that. They've been working on the landscaping and
Mike,
the grass there.
2 quick questions. Number one, where'd you get those postcards? But also, do you know anything about is it granite, is it all marble? Where did all this stone come from to build that courthouse? Do you know?
So it's interesting, when you walk in there, there was Mr. Krause that was the architect, but they set he was from Meridian, and they set the specification of what they want. If you walk through the downstairs, the main hall, there are marble, I would call it a wainscoting, a marble wainscoting, and then the blocks are actually not really blocks above that, they are scored into the plaster or concrete. So it gives the illusion of concrete blocks or granite blocks or whatever. The flooring is tile, that is marble, that wainscoting around, it's on the outside, I think a lot of that is concrete that's been formed to look like brick. I'm not an expert on this, but I've looked at it, and there are outside, probably on the pillars, something that looks to be similar to granite at the base, and there's a lot of concrete there, and can't really. On the outside, the brickwork, there are a lot of ornaments there. You know, there's eagles and feathers and different things that make the building decorative and really accented. Those appear to have been made somewhere and put up there by the brick masons. And, the brickwork on that courthouse is amazing. I've looked at a lot of courthouses, and, it's very different. I love the Marion County Courthouse and the Lamar County Courthouse. I don't know, cause I'm not a Mason and I'm not, but in those courthouses, what little I know, you can immediately see, Masonic symbolism. I haven't, I'm not saying it's not there, but I haven't found that in the courthouse here. I don't know if that's, I would love someone who's versed in that to walk me through and maybe point out what I'm missing.
How much did it cost to build the old?
Excellent question. I overlooked. First of all, let's talk about where they got the land
Okay.
to build the courthouse on. Remember, I told you that wasn't the original site of the courthouse. That property was purchased by Mrs. Estelle Durham in 1910, I believe, for $2,500. Now, you may recognize that name, Miss Frankie's mother, I believe.
Miss Durham.
That was Miss Frankie's mother. Mr. D.D. Durham, who I believe was her father, was a timber company guy. And he owned lots of land and had lots of things going on, but at some point he started putting the property in his wife's name, and he got into lots of litigation about that time. And I'm just guessing that maybe that's why it was in her name. Though both of them signed the deed, they sold it to the Board of Supervisors, I wanna get this right, for $3,600. So the land cost $3,600. The construction of the building was $85,000. At least that's the bid, the winning bid was $85,000. And the furnishings of the courthouse were $10,850, I believe. I've got it written here somewhere, but it's approximately that. So, they had a $100,000 building, you know, when you had all that together. And that's the cabinets and all. The cabinets were metal cabinets, and some of those used to be there. I don't think any of them exist anymore. They were ordered, the finish was to be Japanning, which I didn't know what that meant until I looked it up, and that's a finish they do with paint of some sort that becomes permanent, that makes it look like a wood grain. But it's metal, and they were metal cabinets, and they could be closed and all. As those cabinets filled up, and then newer things were added in, and they ran out of space. And there were a few of those left, and maybe a few of them may actually be in the Chancery Clerk's building in new annex back in the land thing. I should look to see. I think there's still a cabinet, original cabinet or two moved over there. But other than that, it's all gone.
All the land records are still kept there.
The land records are no longer kept there. They're kept in the annex. The Chancery Clerk's office was moved to the annex. The circuit court was able to spread out into the old Chancery part, and that gave them additional space, and it gave them the opportunity to remodel that. And so that was, the tax office had long been moved out of there. They were moved into the annex. The Chancery Court office, clerk's office was moved there. The Chancery Court room is there, and as well as the county courtroom and county court offices are there also. And we have a new judge, Judge Lisa McLaughlin. Judge Rochelle Lumpkin has been, was appointed to take Judge McDonald's place as circuit judge, and Judge McLaughlin was appointed to be our new county court judge, and we are very blessed to have two great judges there. So,
Do they still use the old courtroom in the
Yes,
old
that's
courthouse?
circuit court.
They
Circuit
still
court,
use it?
Yes.
The one now is a circuit,
It's always been circuit, but it used to be shared by circuit and chancery. Then chancery was moved into the building across the street that used to be the hospital. One more point I forgot, the hospital. That was deeded, and I've got the minutes somewhere, the north half of that was deeded to the hospital, to a doctor for the use of a hospital, as trustee for the hospital, and I don't remember his name, it wasn't one I was familiar with, I should have written it down. The building there that we refer to as the old hospital, there was another hospital there prior to that, at some point in time, and I don't know if they converted this courtroom to the hospital. That, I haven't been able to find that out. I'd have to dig through the minutes of the supervisors. That may take a lifetime to find that, but, there's no index to these. It's just a page at a time, a month at a time, a year at a time, so it could take decades to find that stuff.
I have a question, what's in the vault?
The vault is where, the records are kept.
But they're still there.
So there's a new, all right. It was required in the old days, I'm talking about Pearl County. Outlaws would go and burn the courthouse down so they couldn't be tried because the evidence was kept in the courthouse and they didn't have a place to try them. So that's what happened in Pearl County. And then they went bankrupt, they couldn't build another one, so Pearl County dissolved. Then we had Pearl River County. So when Pearl River County came along, it was required that you had a vault to keep the records in because the records were precious. It was the only proof of ownership of your land. Somebody could go up there and steal a book and steal your land, so fire could come, destroy your records. So the 1918 courthouse, the chancery records were kept in the vault, as well as the circuit court has some records, but not as many that they keep in the vault. So there's a smaller vault on the other side. At some point, in 1960s or 1970s, they microfilmed all these records. And microfilm deteriorates, but that was kind of a safety measure. I've never seen the microfilm. It's up in Jackson, stored somewhere in case of an emergency. Now, all of the records for land records up back to this, I don't know, I'd have to ask Ms. Bowman if they've all been, but a lot of them going way back have been have been imaged. And you can actually access those records, if you subscribe to it, you can sit at home on your computer and look at the records. I went into the vault yesterday and worked there an hour on this and nobody ever came in. When I used to, there'd be 30 people in there working. So I don't know if it's economics or it's because they can check it on the computer now. But so the need for a fortified vault is not as great as it used to be. However, the land record room is constructed in such a way that it is supposedly, it's not locked up. The old one, you actually had a safe door to it. You had screens that would lock and all that, but.
Well, Mike, you said you have, if you subscribe to it, what is the subscription, what tool is that?
To the Chancery Clerk's land records. It's quite expensive and you probably wouldn't wanna do it unless you are in the business of using those records. You can either pay, I don't remember what it is, I think it's like $20 or $30 a month and you get so many copies. After that you have to pay for copies, or you can do a year's subscription and you get, if you pay up for a year, you get extra copies, and then if you use all those for the end of
But
the year.
you're saying if you have a subscription, you can look online at what they have.
Or you can go down there for free and look. I mean, in person, but if you wanna do it online, it costs money. And the reason is to pay for that service.
Right.
The county has to, pay a company to maintain that website. And the way they, those subscriptions and the copies are the way they fund that.
Oh, is the sheriff's office located in the new or the old?
So the sheriff still has an office in the old courthouse.
Okay.
Honestly, the main portion of business done by the sheriff's office is done in Millard, but they do have one there, cause I think they're required to, and there's certain, excuse me, it's a place where they drop off subpoenas and summons.
Is that where the jail is in Millard?
It is.
County jail.
And the justice courtroom, is in a building adjacent to it, which also houses, the Department of Human Services, out there. It was kind of a compromise to put it, to make it a little bit more accessible to people from Picayune. I mean, it's out in the country, but, you know, the county had the land, and the thinking was, you know, it's not quite halfway, it's closer to us than Picayune, probably be another 5 miles south, it'd be almost exactly halfway. Okay, well, thank you, appreciate you.